The map had been staring at Kael for 3 months now, its center stubbornly blank while its exquisite edges mocked her with their precision. She sat at her mother's old drafting table, her drafting table now, surrounded by interview recordings, historical photographs, and 17 different accounts of where the footpaths of Bramwell Township's original commons had run. The surveyor from 1902 said one thing. Mr. Haroldson, who'd played there as a child, remembered another. The aerial photograph from 1858 suggested something else entirely.
Now, let me think. The 1930s, it must have been. We didn't call it the Commons then, dear. It was just the Rough. The surveyor's map shows a straight line, I know, but the feet don't walk in straight lines, do they? We always veered left at the lightning-struck oak, the one with the low branch. We'd follow the scent of the wild onions near the creek. If you draw it straight, you've missed the whole point of the walk. It curved, like a bended elbow, right where the soil turns to clay.
Kael had promised herself that she'd finish this. Her mother had worked on this commission for 8 years before her passing last spring, and although the woman could draw property lines blindfolded, something had stopped her from completing this particular map. Her mother had specialized in memory cartography, documenting vanished landscapes before they could be entirely forgotten. It was slow, meticulous work that required interviews with elderly residents, cross-referencing old photographs, measuring from stories when no other measurements remained. When Kael inherited the studio and found the unfinished work, she'd understood immediately. This wasn't about ability. This was about something else. The studio still smelled like her mother. Linseed oil, paper, the faint herbal scent from the dried flowers that hung in bundles near the window. Mostly lavender and yarrow, but also the striking blue trumpets of gentian, collected from somewhere, their color nearly iridescent even in death. Her mother had labeled them in that careful hand. Gentiana clausa, September bloom, for when the way forward becomes unclear. She'd thought, in her grief and determination, that she could do what her mother couldn't, that fresh eyes and a systematic mind could cut through whatever had stalled the project. She'd been wrong. She wasn't a cartographer by training. Her mother had taught her drafting as a teenager. Those quiet Saturday mornings at the same table, learning to hold the pen at precisely the right angle, to let the line flow. Kael had loved it, but chose data analysis instead. Steadier income, clearer career path, health insurance that didn't lapse. The skills had stayed with her, though, muscle memory waiting in her hands. She'd thought that would be enough. The problem had revealed itself within a week. Kael had her mother's notes, her interview recordings, and documents. She had everything except the ability to make the pieces cohere. Every conflicting account paralyzed her, where the footpaths ran, where the fence angled. She chose the surveyor's version, then scrapped it for Mr. Haroldson's memory. Then started again. 3 months passed, then 5. Kael's flatmate, Simone, watched her grow brittle. Maybe, Simone had said carefully one evening, the map can't be perfect. Maybe close enough is. My mother didn't do close enough. Your mother also didn't finish it. The words hung in the air like smoke. Kael returned to her drafting table in the studio and stared at the half-rendered commons. The edges were exquisite. The center remained stubbornly blank. She began having the dream, walking through the fog, trying to find a path she knew existed but couldn't see. Every time she thought she'd found it, it dissolved into another false start. She'd wake with her jaw aching from clenching. Then, one Tuesday, when Kael had just erased an entire quadrant for the 4th time, she swept the whole project, notes, maps, recordings, everything, into a box and carried it to the basement. She didn't slam the lid. She placed it carefully, gently, the way you might close the door on someone sleeping. She walked, not purposefully, just away. The October afternoon was overcast, threatening rain. She found herself on the trail behind the old Riverside Cemetery where the township maintenance ended and things grew wild. There, in a clearing where the soil looked poor and rocky, she found them. Bottled gentian, their deep blue-purple flowers closed tight against the gray sky. She crouched down. These living versions of her mother's dried specimens had petals sealed into perfect cylinders. She touched one. It didn't open. They wouldn't until the sun came out, keeping their own counsel in dim weather. She sat beside them, these flowers that bloomed so late, that closed themselves against uncertainty. Around her, October woods were settling into dormancy. But here, insistent blue, even sealed shut. She went home and applied for 3 weeks' leave from work. Simone found her on the couch, staring at nothing. "What do you need?" "I don't know." Kael's voice sounded far away. "I keep starting over. I keep trying to find the right version, the true version, and every time I think I have it, something contradicts it. I can't. I don't know how to move forward when I can't trust that I'm moving in the right direction." Simone was quiet for a moment. Then, "Your mother had a friend. Rowan? She came to the funeral. I remember she mentioned something about helping your mother when she got stuck in the revision cycle. Those were her exact words." Kael met Rowan at a coffee shop near the university where Rowan taught landscape history. She was perhaps 60, with silver hair and a long braid and hands stained with what looked like ink or soil. "Your mother was brilliant," Rowan said. "Also a perfectionist that sometimes couldn't see the forest for the trees." She smiled gently. "I assume you're stuck on the commons?" Kael nodded, surprised by the sudden pressure behind her eyes. "She talked to me about it. The problem wasn't the research. She'd done excellent research. The problem was that she didn't trust herself to make the necessary interpretive choices. Memory mapping isn't about finding the truth. It's about synthesizing testimonies into a truth, one that honors the spirit of what was." Rowan paused. "Every time she'd commit to a choice, she'd second-guess herself. Not because she lacked evidence, but because she'd lost faith in her ability to discern what the evidence meant." "So how do I—" Kael trailed off. "You remember that certainty and perfection aren't the same thing. You make your best judgment with integrity and knowledge. You commit to it, and you keep going. The map will have some errors. All maps do. But completion with minor errors serves the world better than incompletion with none." They talked for 2 hours. When Kael left, she felt lighter, though nothing concrete had changed. Rowan had given her no technique, no method, just permission, perhaps, to be uncertain and move anyway. That evening, she retrieved the box from the basement and spread everything across her dining table. This time, when conflicting testimonies arose, she felt the familiar doubt, but something had shifted. The doubt was still there, but it wasn't a wall anymore. It was weather, something she could move through. She made a choice about the fence line. The choice felt uncertain. She made it anyway. The work was still hard. Some days she still backtracked a bit, but she learned to sit with uncertainty without letting it metastasize into paralysis. When spiraling, she'd pause, breathe, make the next decision. She thought sometimes of those gentian flowers, sealed tight but still blooming, still there in the rocky soil, waiting for better light. 6 weeks later, she finished. The map wasn't perfect. The western boundary incorporated Mr. Haraldson's testimony, which might have been colored by nostalgia. The footpath near the old oak tree was positioned where 3 sources agreed, though a 4th had suggested otherwise. But it was done. It was coherent. It was honest. Kael rolled it carefully and drove to Bramwell Township. The client, an elderly man named Mr. Voss, examined it for a long time. "This is excellent work," he said finally. "Your mother would be proud." "There might be errors," Kael said. "Some choices I made could be wrong." "All maps are approximations," Mr. Voss said. "This one approximates with care and knowledge. That's enough." Driving home, Kael realized she was crying. Not from grief, the grief was still there. From relief, from completion, from the understanding that her mother's last work existed now in the world, imperfect and real, better than the perfect map that had existed only as paralysis. Late October now, she drove past the cemetery trail, stopping on impulse, taking a walk. The gentian were still there. Some faded, but a few late bloomers had opened. The sun had come out, and they'd unsealed themselves, deep blue trumpets flaring wide. She stood there for a long time, looking at flowers that waited for the right conditions, that bloomed anyway in poor soil. When she got home, she didn't put away her mother's drafting tools. She left them on the table, within reach. The map hangs now in Bramwell Township's Historical Society. People trace their fingers along its careful lines, remembering a commons that no longer exists except in testimony, photograph, and this, one woman's best interpretation, completed by her daughter, who learned that sometimes you finish things not because you're certain, but because staying stuck is its own kind of failure. Winter came. Kael kept the studio. On weekends, she began taking on small cartography projects. Nothing urgent, nothing with the weight of inheritance, but her hands remembered the work. And when doubt came, and it did come, she thought of those gentian flowers blooming late in rocky soil, sealed tight when conditions weren't right, opening when they were. Not pushing through, not forcing, just waiting, then moving when the time was right. Kael's map was finished not because the fog cleared, but because she decided to move through it. In the world of flower essences, this is the territory of gentian. Gentian is for the specific discouragement that comes after setback, that voice whispering, "What's the point?" when conflicting information or minor failures paralyze our next step. This flower itself offers us the lesson. These deep blue trumpets close tightly in cloudy weather, keeping their own counsel. They don't force themselves open, but they don't give up either. They simply wait for the sun to return. Gentian doesn't promise certainty or a perfect map. Instead, it restores our faith to discern the path forward, helping us see doubt as weather, something to be moved through, rather than a wall to be stopped by. If you are currently stuck in a revision cycle of your own, holding your work back because it isn't perfect, may you find the spirit of this late bloomer. May you finish what waits for you, not because you're finally sure, but because it's time to let it exist.